So, super excited to be working with Dr. Yanetsi, and we have decided to once a month do a webinar that is focused around bone density. And we believe that this is an area that women have really, or people in general, have really not been getting all the information that they need. And it's such an important part of health that we really want to spread the word and be a resource. We're going to be covering different topics at each webinar, and the next webinar is going to be on the 28th of August, and we're going to be talking about understanding your DEXA scan and also body composition and its importance to aging. So really excited. And I also want to share with everybody, this is educational content only. We're not giving any medical advice, and anything that Dr. Yanetsi is sharing or I'm sharing, we're not creating any doctor-patient relationship in this hour. So just
Correct.
start out with that. And just to begin with, yeah, it's never too late or too early to start. And what a lot of people don't realize is your bones are living tissue that are changing throughout your life, and you really need to be optimizing them as a teenager throughout your life. And a lot of different life stages impact how strong your bones are as you age. So, we're going to talk about some of that. My guess is that a lot of people that are here today are here either because they were possibly diagnosed with a bone density issue. Maybe they've been hearing about bone density issues because it's becoming at the forefront as an important woman's issue. And as women are standing up there and saying, we want our special medical issues addressed.
That's
This is a topic that's coming up over and over. And hopefully, a lot of people are going to be here and watching this because they want to prevent any bone density issues as they age. So, I just want to share quickly how I got so passionate about this and why this is my life's work is because at in my early 50s, I was diagnosed with severe osteoporosis. And if you looked at me or talked to me, you would never know it. I lived a super active life. I was lifting weights, I was water skiing, wake surfing, snow skiing, paddle boarding, biking. That's how I connected with my kids and my family. And I had a high protein diet. I thought I was getting all the right nutrients. And my just by the fact that I had a proactive doctor who said, hey, your vitamin D levels are low, which Dr. Yanetsi is going to talk a little bit about that down the road, but he recognized low vitamin D levels have a cascading effect for overall health. And he said, you know what, you're right at menopause. Let's do a bone density exam. Came back with the bones of a 90-year-old at 50. No symptoms, no pain, nothing. And I was really angry because I thought, what's going on? And so, fast forward, the good news is I did a ton of research. I'm a big believer that the body wants to heal if given the right tools. And I went down a path to figure out what the right tools were. Long story short, I'm out of osteoporosis in my hips and my spine. I moved back from a negative 3.8 to a negative 3, which is rolling back spine health decades. My bone density improves every year, and my regular doctor, my allopathic internist, sends patients to us all the time at OsteoStrong. So and no medication. So just want to share that there is hope, there is a way, there is a path. And so when I was first diagnosed, what I did was probably what most people would do is I said, oh, okay, well, who's the bone density expert in the medical world? Who do I go to? If I go to an endocrinologist, will they know everything? Well, surely my gynecologist will know everything about women's issues. She's focused on women. What about an orthopedic? He focuses on bone density. What I recognize through all my research is they each have their own piece in the puzzle to play, including nutrition, physical therapists, even psychologists. but there's not one specialty that's owning all of it. I will say that functional doctors, such as Dr. Yanetsi, are focusing on treating the whole patient. And so my personal opinion is that's the best source to go when you're trying to fix issues like this. But with this situation right now, we're left without answers, trying to piece together where the right solution is for you. Because what might be causing my bone density loss might not be the same thing that's causing somebody else's bone density loss. So you really have to be a detective and partner with somebody who's a detective that is open to the possibility that any one of these could really be your problem or a combination.
Correct.
So the answers have never been missing. This is information that is available out there if you're searching for it, but will help you cut through a lot of the noise that's on the internet. You hear a lot of contradicting information, and we're here to give you the map. So, this is something that I really became present to recently. The uncomfortable truth is that if you're diagnosed with breast cancer, you have a 9% chance of dying from it, roughly. If you break your hip, you have anywhere from a 20 to 30% chance of dying within a year. They don't capture hip fracture death statistics in the same exact way that they do for breast cancer, but for breast cancer, they're estimating somewhere in the $40,000 person a year range. I've seen estimates for hip fracture deaths anywhere from 40,000 to over 100,000. This is a real health issue for women. And for women that actually do survive that fracture, 50% of them will be disabled. 50%. And think about that. When you want to go out with your friends and have lunch, or you want to go to dinner, or your friends are going to play pickleball and you've got your walker, what's going to happen? Another thing that I really was very present to was, if I'm disabled, who's going to be taking care of me? Is that a burden that I want on my children or my spouse? And if you don't have a child or a spouse, do you have the hundreds of thousands of dollars that at home or nursing care costs to do it probably the way you want it done? So
Correct.
I'm guessing that most people in the room didn't really know those statistics and that comparison. So I hope you let that sink in. So I just addressed a little bit about bone is not just about, oh, I don't want to fracture. Fracture's not fun. It's painful. It costs money. It takes time to heal. But really, what's at stake is your independence, your mobility, and enjoying the life you want to live as you age. Something we're not talking a lot about here today is that also how strong your bones are determines how strong your muscles are as you age. So if you're a person that has disordered eating and your bones are weak and you're 27, 30 years old, you're going to have difficulty with mobility and staying strong. Your muscles can only be as strong as what's safe for your bones to handle. So, another thing, how many of us, I hope all of us, are getting their mammograms regularly year after year past 40? And I think maybe that's part of the reason why the mortality rate's 9% for breast cancer. But how many of you have been getting bone density scans throughout your life? Not me. I actually proactively scanned my 3 children, and my 29-year-old daughter shows up as having osteopenia. We think of osteoporosis and osteopenia as a old person's disease, but that's only because that's where the medical community is looking for it. If we started looking for it in the disordered eating community, in the addiction community, in the autoimmune community, They're starting to look at it in the cancer community. We would be finding it a lot more, and we would be cutting it off much sooner at the pass and giving people the tools they need. So we need to start decades earlier to serve people better. So Dr. Yanetsi is going to talk a little bit more about what impacts
Medical things, yes. Well, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm Dr. Yanetsi. So, like Dawn just said, basically having low bone density is not a medical condition of old people. I have a patient whose daughter is 21 and she has osteoporosis because she has, unfortunately, eating disorders. So it's something that it is happening in the younger community. Again, we're not looking unless you have a doctor that it's proactively looking, sending you for a DEXA scan, etc. So here we're listing a few common conditions that will accelerate your bone loss. So if you have an autoimmune condition, unfortunately, I'm going through my own health journey, but I have Hashimoto's. So that kind of, I'm already on the first and second points here on this slide. I have an autoimmune condition and also a thyroid disorder. So thyroid disorder is very common in women. Hashimoto's is the most commonly diagnosed thyroid disease in females. So that puts you at a risk for having not healthy bones. Asthma medications. For those who do not know and didn't look me up prior to this webinar, I am a former pediatrician turned longevity doctor and menopause society provider due to my own journey. But I prescribe plenty of asthma medications in children, and I know plenty of adults who also take it. So that puts you at risk. Cancer treatment, which Don and I were talking yesterday, it absolutely saves lives, but it's devastating. I have many patients on cancer treatment, chemotherapy, and it's devastating to their bones and overall their health. So we have to, talk to those patients about this. And then, like I mentioned, disorder eating with this 21-year-old that I know. Go ahead, next slide. So most people really, we don't walk around thinking, oh my God, I might be at risk for, osteopenia, which is low bone density, and then osteoporosis, which is advanced disease of bone. And we might think we're too young, but we're here to tell you that it's never too early to look, and it's never too late to start if you do have the diagnosis. So here are some of the top contributors to bone loss that I would like to mention to you all on this educational webinar. So hormone decline, top on the list. And most females, I mean, I think it's becoming quite trendy, I would say, for patients to get their blood work done and then go to the doctor and be like, oh, can you check my hormones? And then, we'll talk in other slides about what happens after that. But your hormones declining, which happens to all of us. No one's going to skip that stage if you're alive. Chronic stress and cortisol, this deserves a presentation of its own because I think most of us live in a stressful lives here. If insufficient mechanical loading is relating to exercise, which Dawn is going to cover during the presentation. Again, nutrition, key component. I always simply say, coming from the pediatric world, I always tell my patients, you are what you eat, and you are what you eat, and it could be good or bad. Gut health and nutritional malabsorption, absolutely. You could be eating the right things and not absorbing it, something that needs to be looked at if it's necessary. Low vitamin D, very key. I think this was not discovered, but I guess talked about more since COVID, because they found out that a lot of patients that had passed away or that were critically ill in the ICU have very low vitamin D. Is linked with everything in your health. And then medications and conditions, like we mentioned in the previous slide. And of course, as you get older, you're not as active, but you don't have to stop moving, but also that puts you at a risk for bone loss. So here, just to go a little bit more about the hormone component. So hormones, and in this case, we start with estrogen, is going to decline no matter what you do, what you take. If you take something natural or not, it's going to go down. All the hormones decline as we get older. Perimenopause, we all can have a different journey, but late 30s is what we're finding out, early 40s. And then menopause, which the definition is 12 months with no period for those females that are still menstruating. The average age is 51, 52 here in the United States. So while you're going through this transition, just know that your hormones are declining, and this is putting your bones at risk for fracture. And this is why it's so much common in females. I mean, I've had great aunts back in Cuba in wheelchairs, and I mean, I was very young when I left Cuba, and I remember having great aunts, in wheelchair. And of course, now as a physician and doing this kind of work, I'm like, I am sure she had osteoporosis from a very young age, because 1 out of 2 women will be diagnosed with osteoporosis. And out of that percentage, which is 50%, is quite scary. 1 out of 3 is going to have a fracture from that osteoporosis diagnosis. So this is, if it doesn't affect us, because we're the 50% that doesn't get affected, the lucky ones that potentially are really taking care of health, it's going to happen to another woman you know. It could be your mom or a friend or whatnot. So basically knowing where your hormones, what they're doing. And I think on the talk here, one of the viewers, it's my patient, and of course, no HIPAA, no information disclosed here. But I was going to mention her regardless on the presentation, because she's my oldest patient that has come to my office, and she heard me talk at OsteoStrong, and her take was, I want to know where my hormones are at. She's like, I know I'm this age, and I want to know where I'm at. So then you can help me create an action plan, and we can move forward and do something about it. Because as you heard from Dawn, and in case you do not know, osteoporosis can be reversed. This is not, it's a bad diagnosis, but if it doesn't wake you up, then I don't know what else will. So it's knowing where you're at and then doing something about it, and finding the right support is key. That's my point. So here we see, and Dawn alluded to this before. So bones are living tissues. They're constantly remodeling, right? There's breaking down and basically forming again, breaking down and forming again. And the biochemistry behind that, it's complicated, but basically there are cells that help the bones break, because they need to break in the remodeling process, and then there are cells that help you form the bone. So estrogen in itself, it prevents our bones from breaking down. So think of, a seesaw. If you have a lot of breaking down, not a lot of forming, you're gonna have break of the bone, right? The bone is gonna become weaker. So estrogen itself, one of the many things it does in our bodies when it relates to bone, is keeping the bone breakdown cells in check. So again, going back to that hormone, along with progesterone, testosterone, which we mentioned here, they are going to decline. And what we end up seeing is that 10 to 20% of our bone density, it's lower in the first 5 to 7 years going through the menopause transition. So think about, we're not starting already at 100, because your peak bone mass reaches between 20 and 30. Most of us here, maybe, I mean, I'm 44, we're past that age. So it's going on the downtrend. So then we have hormones that decline and puts us at a higher risk for that percentage to continue being lower and lower, which is quite concerning. And testosterone and also progesterone, which we don't have listed here, their job is to help build bones. So estrogen is helping it not break down, basically keeping on check, and the other two are helping bones. So they all work together in parallel. And thyroid and cortisol, super important. Like I said, cortisol deserves, maybe Don and I will talk about it, a lecture of its own, because there's so much to learn about our cortisol level. Everybody thinks, oh, the hormone of stress, it raises or whatnot. But it's so much to do with it. And it also, believe it or not, both of them affect your bone health. So the whole normal labs, I mean, this is like all over social media. I know that if you click on a reel that talks about labs, and you'll get 50 more about labs. Well, I get like 100 more every day, all day. And this is one of my main, um, I was thinking this morning in preparation for this talk, how Dawn and I are like the perfect couple, because she had the diagnosis of osteoporosis and has done all the work, and now this is her mission to help other females and men too. But usually, I'm always say I'm a woman advocate. I take care of 99% women, and then the husbands. I'm like, maybe, but if they're nice to their wives. But in my case, my issue, what my reason, what put a fire under my butt, if I'm allowed to say butt here, is that I had normal labs after I had my kid at 40. And I went to my gynecologist, I went to my primary care doctor, like a good patient is supposed to do. I didn't go and try to figure it out on my own. I'm like, I need help. Advanced maternal age, having a kid at 40. And everybody was like, it's normal, doctor, everything's fine. Here's this cream or whatever, reduce your stress. And they don't even tell you how you can do that. And so knowing how your labs are being interpreted and what range, I tell my patients, and I have a patient today at 2, and she's 35, and she's coming for evaluation of everything, functional and hormones. I tell them that the right side of Quest or LabCorp reference range, we could just like Sharpie it all out. I don't look at any of that. The lab values that I look at are optimal lab values and with the functional medicine lens. So just question when you're told that everything is fine, and more if you're not feeling fine. The thing with bones is that we don't feel a fracture coming. We don't feel weak bones. That's not something you feel, So it's like the investigation needs to be done with the proper provider helping you. So then that's one of the things I do at the office. Yeah, everybody wants labs, but what are we going to do with these labs, right? How are we going to interpret them and what treatment plan are we going to put in place? So understanding your hormonal landscape along with everything else, because when I order labs, I don't just order progesterone, testosterone, estrogen. We're ordering your iron levels, we're ordering your testosterone, the full panel for thyroid, etc. So it's very important to know this information. And then, yeah, cortisol keeps coming up because it's really quite important. I think everybody, when they think of hormones, they think of the regular ones that I've been mentioning. But cortisol, the best way I explain it to my patients is like, well, you know how you have when you have high insulin, because there's so many diabetics in this world, um, unfortunately, and your muscles mainly become your body, but mainly the muscles become resistant to insulin. So you are insulin resistant. And I could see an insulin level above 5. And my patient this afternoon is 9, so we're gonna have a long talk. And I already know that she is not clearing up the glucose from her body from eating, of course, as well as someone who has it less than 5. So same thing with cortisol. If we're constantly stressed, cortisol is up, cortisol is up, cortisol is up, and eventually, and cortisol has a lot of jobs. I mean, I have a long list here, but I won't bore you with it. But a lot with reducing inflammation, let's put it that way. And the patients that have autoimmune conditions know that when they take the steroid, their prednisone, that's supposed to lower inflammation. It's a cortisone that they're taking. Um, Basically, you become resistant to that. So then you have chronic high elevations of cortisol. You're going to end up having chronic inflammation. And then chronic inflammation, I'm sorry, but it's not going to help any organ in your body, including bones. So, like you see here, it works against bone density. And most of us don't walk around saying, oh, I'm stressed. I am messing up my bones. That's just, I don't even think of it that way. But maybe I'll start thinking of it that way after this talk. All right, yeah, done with the slide. And yeah, this is you.
Yes. Okay. So, one of my favorite topics um, is why a lot of people have gotten the message that, oh, if my bone density is low, I'm going to just exercise more. And that's a big blind spot in osteoporosis improvement, or bone density improvement. More exercise isn't the answer. And just like you don't strengthen your muscles by making your heart rate increase, it's what strengthens your heart is different than what strengthens your muscles. Well, what people are really just starting to recognize now is that what strengthens bone is different from those other two. So traditional exercise that we've been used to doing, that a lot of women prefer, such as walking or Pilates, or women will say, oh, well, I've heard that weight bearing and weightlifting is really good for bone density, and they start lifting weights and they're lifting 5 or 10 pound weights. The problem with all of that, and I love exercise, the more signals you send to the body that you need to stay strong, the stronger you're going to stay, because you're either strengthening or declining. So super important, but more exercise for bone density is not the answer. It's too little stimulus that's not producing the change that the bones are looking for. It's like using a hammer to unscrew a screw. It's the wrong tool for the job. So when people look at doing weightlifting and they say, oh, I'm going to lift really heavy weight, there's the real chance of injury risk. And so, what studies are showing is that in order to improve your bone density in your hips and femur, you need 4 times your body weight or more of force to trigger bone remodeling. That's the signal. It's almost like until you hit that threshold, the body doesn't see what you're doing as worth, doesn't have it as a signal for bones to get stronger. So unless you're lifting 400 pounds or more, I know I'm not, not not sure about any of you. Exercise and weightlifting is probably not the answer for improving your bone density. Great for everything else, but not that. So the physics that nobody really ever explained is, like I said, that more exercise or most exercise doesn't reach the force threshold. Even running reaches only about 3 times the body weight amount of force. So osteogenic loading was invented as a way to specifically handle this issue. And they're pieces of equipment that are using isometric loading where you're pushing against two immovable objects and your bones are absorbing the force. It's impact emulation, but in a safe way. And it's coach guided. It takes 10 minutes 1 time a week. When I first started doing it, I was able to put about 800 pounds of force through my lower body. Now I'm putting anywhere from 1,400, I put as much as 1,900 pounds of force through my lower body. That is a screaming signal to the body that it needs to wake up and make the bones stronger because it's going to have to be absorbing more force. And that's what we want. We want to send that signal to the body that it needs to get to work, putting resources into the bones to make them stronger. Otherwise, the body just says, oh, Dawn doesn't need strong bones. She's not doing anything that requires strong bones. So that's what OsteoStrong is. And so I'm going to have Dr. Yanetsi talk about the eating right but not absorbing it,
Yes,
because
yes. Oh,
if we're sending a signal to the body that you need stronger bones, the body needs the building blocks to make the stronger bones. And so that's where nutrition and absorption comes in.
correct, correct. And yeah, I think the next few slides we're going to be talking about those building blocks. And needless to say, your nutrition is key. That you are what you eat is a very simplistic way of putting it, but you could be eating the right things. And, I guess your right thing hopefully is the same as my right thing, but the conversations to be had. Um, and not absorbing it because you might have a gut absorption issue. I mean, there are conditions that puts you at risk for malabsorption. I mean, I saw a patient last Sunday. She's been a dear friend for years, and she had gastric bypass way back when that was so common to do years and years ago. And now she was diagnosed with pernicious anemia. She's unable to absorb B12, and we have to kind of change her plan around. She cannot take it orally because she's not going to absorb it. We have to do injections or sublingual. So knowing what your gut looks like, and there are very specific tests that can be done. It's very important. But if you come already with some of these diagnoses, IBS, celiac disease, Crohn's disease, or me, for example, with Hashimoto's, I know that a lot has to do with gut health and gut inflammation. So I have to make changes to absorb one of the building blocks, which again is the protein, to help me have healthy bones and put on muscle. And then calcium. I was thinking when I first started reading the presentation, and I'm like, I remember when I was little, again, I'm 44, so whenever that was, oh, drink your milk so you can get calcium for your bones, so you can have strong bones. And I'm like, little do we know, we had so many other, cofactors that are needed. Like, so calcium alone from whatever food source without vitamin D and also magnesium and K2, which we're going to talk about on the next slide, it's doing nothing for your bones. And a multivitamin, I could tell you right now, most of multivitamins have a combination of medications that should not even be taken together. So I never, ever, ever prescribe my patients a multivitamin. So optimization level, vitamin D levels, 60 or higher is the number that I look for, just so you're aware. And then since vitamin D and calcium work together to basically make you have strong bones. Vitamin K also is paired together with calcium for a reason. Vitamin K is going to bring your calcium from the arteries in your heart mainly into bone. We don't want that plaque forming in your heart. We want stronger bones. So K2 does that. So if you're taking a vitamin D3 without K2, it's time to make a switch. And then also, no, vitamin D, it influences, it's a hormone. It's funny that it's sold over the counter, but it's a hormone. And it influences the production, metabolism, and function of all your sex hormones, and they all come from cholesterol. I have this chart at the office that I show patients, and everybody's like, well, I guess cholesterol is important. I'm like, sure is at the right level. So again, bone, living tissue, let's not just think as, something that you have in your body. It's living and breathing tissue, and it's constantly remodeling. So you're thinking of the different cofactors or different building blocks. So you have your nutrition, you have your mechanical loading, exercising, you have the vitamins that we just talked about, right? The different cofactors, and then you have the signals from your hormones. So think about this as an equation, 1 + 1 = 2 or whatever, when we used to do math in school. If any of those cofactors are missing building blocks, then the result is not going to be the healthiest bones you can have or health overall, to be honest. But we're mainly focusing on bone health. So if you're missing the signal from the hormones because your hormones are declining and you haven't looked at it or you're not interested in hormones, whatever your decisions are, right? Your body, your choice. You're not going to have the same healthy bones as someone else who potentially is doing it all. If you're not exercising the way Dawn is explaining here and putting that mechanical loading in your bones, building muscle with the proteins, it's not going to result into the healthiest bones you can have. So something's missing. It's time to work on it.
And something I want to mention here too is, and I know, Dr. Yanetsi as a functional doctor is so present to this, is that the body's a closed system. You impact, something in one area, it's going to impact something else. You take a certain pill, it's going to have an impact somewhere else. It's all tied together. And things that you do to help build strong bones are going to have an amazing effect on the whole rest of the body. So,
Absolutely. Very connected.
so if nothing changes, where does this lead in the future? So, something that I like to say to people is if your doctor called you and said that you had stage 1 or 2 cancer, would you just say, well, I'm going to wait? I'll wait until I'm stage 3 or 4 to make any changes. It doesn't seem that severe right now. I hear that all the time from people who have received an osteopenia diagnosis. So, your overall path to stronger bones are to make sure that you're optimizing your hormones, you're optimizing your nutrition, you're optimizing your gut health, you're choosing exercise that reaches the force threshold that bone needs to remodel, and that you're focusing on street sleep and stress management. So some people decide after they're diagnosed. Some people decide before anything goes wrong because they recognize they don't want to be one of the 50%. And I would say my guess is that this is going to be increasing in the future due to a lot of different reasons. I think that in general, every generation, the children are getting less and less impact and less and less nutrition. I think it carries on throughout our lives. I don't think that this number is going to be going down. There's a lot of medications. GLP-1s have also been shown to have an impact on bone density and muscle health. And so, is it easier to right a ship that's 2 degrees off course at the very beginning of a journey, or after it's been traveling thousands of miles off course? That's what you get to decide.
Correct.
So, protecting your bones and your health is what helps protect all the other things you've been investing in throughout your life. I'm sure you're investing in things your body makes possible. You need a strong body to travel, to have dinner out, to do things like pickleball, go play golf. But none of that works if your body fails you. As a society, a lot of us have been convinced to believe that the only things we should be doing for our health are things that our insurance pays for. Unfortunately, insurance, that motivation is not the same as our own motivation. My motivation is to stay as healthy and as well as long as possible. Um, they're more about treating symptoms. So, an investment in your health is the investment that protects everything else you've been investing in for your life. So, we're going to go into questions, but we're going to share this here. OsteoStrong, if you decide that you want to give OsteoStrong a try, because that piece of maybe your bone health journey isn't what you think it should be. For listening to this webinar, I am offering a $189 1 month membership. That's a $199 savings with the sign up fee waived. So you have to mention that you watched this webinar. And then Dr. Yanetsi, would you like to talk about what you're offering?
Yes, of course, of course. So DEXA scan, for those who do not know, is going to tell us about our bone density. It's a test that's used, one of the tests, the one that's FDA approved, but also it's going to tell you, at least the one that I order, is going to tell you about your body composition, because I care to know about your bone health, your muscle health, and also your fat percentage. And that's what we track at the office. So basically, these two offers, the first one is going to be a DEXA scan with my interpretation and then an actual plan as to what to do with those results. Because DEXA is going to tell you where you're at, but where you're going to go, it's more than just having those results. And then the second one is going to include also a hormone panel. Basically, it's checking your blood to check your hormones, and that will be mainly the sex hormones and the thyroid hormones. And then a consultation with me to again go over the results and create a plan.
This is our information also, if you want to write our phone numbers down. And now I can't see the chat. I'm not sure if you can see the chat, Dr. Yanetsi,
Yeah, I
but
can see
like,
the chat. I
okay,
don't see any questions. Maybe everybody's very informed. If anyone wants to come off mute and ask a question, then we can answer them. And I know the QR code basically just has the attendees enter the information and let us know what offer they're interested in and how we can help them.
oops.
Hey ladies, it's Melissa.
Hi, Melissa.
Hi. I just wanted to thank you. That was so I'm a functional dietitian and I deal with all aspects of this from a food and nutrient standpoint. And what was so compelling about with what you both shared is that concept of physician heal thyself. And often as you started as a pediatrician and Dawn, you didn't start off as a physician, but you probably have more knowledge than most
Yeah.
relatives to this,
Correct.
right? And it's the need and the want to solve something that a system has failed for yourself. even you as a doctor who was failed by the system to dig deep, find the answers, and fix something that affects such a tremendous part of the population it's incredible. And Dawn, that offer that you're giving, people spend more than that monthly on supplements that they just kind of pee out and go in the toilet. So
Expensive
I
pee
know.
is what we were talking about yesterday, right? Expensive pee. So many people.
Very expensive tea, yes, just to say you're doing it and it's doing absolutely nothing. And like your bones are the foundation of every single part of your body. And if there's anything worth investing in from a knowledge, time, effort, financial impact, it's what holds up your entire system. So thank you both, because it's one thing to have book knowledge because you have a title. It's a whole nother thing, a whole nother experience to have somebody who's navigated that successfully for themselves and then utilizes that his pain point and that moving through it to help others. So just thank you both. That was totally fun and informative, and thank you.
You're welcome. One thing that I do wanted to share is when we were discussing DEXA real quick, the patient that I saw on Sunday, she asked her primary care doctor for DEXA because she's been working with me for a while. And a lot of patients do come to me with the limitation of financial limitations, and they wanted to have it covered by insurance. But however, most insurances don't cover until you're 65, FYI, unless you have a problem, which already puts you at a risk. But so great, the doctor ordered it. But then I'm like, oh my God, so what did he tell you? No, he told me everything was fine over the phone or a portal message or whatever it was. And when I'm reading it, I'm like, you have osteopenia. You're like point 0.1 away from osteoporosis. I'm like, and the
Wow.
report said right there, the breakdown of the numbers. So it doesn't take like a college degree or a medical degree for that matter. And I'm like, look, Maria, it says right here, like you have, I mean, so it's like you can be getting it done, but then she's like, I asked for it because you told me. And then he told me everything was fine.
Yeah, and
I'm like,
Dr. Yanetsi, to your point about that is that I think a lot of the reason why doctors will say that is because I don't think they love the medication, and that's the tool in their toolkit. They're not really trained to teach people and don't really know all the pieces, the hormone,
correct. Basically,
the
you're avoiding a conversation,
yes,
and
yes.
then most of them, well, at least in that case, let me not generalize, but potentially this doctor's not telling their patients you have a problem until you have osteoporosis. And then, I mean, I'm 95% sure that the solution to that is going to be here are the prescription drugs, pharmaceuticals, not like, oh, how you're eating, how you're exercising. I mean, this is ongoing. So it's I don't know, just we gotta be advocates for our own health and want more for ourselves. Because I told her, I was like, she's a nurse manager, very active, has 2 grandkids, and I looked at her and I go, how will you feel if you end up in a wheelchair? And she already has had broken ulna, broken foot, broken I don't know what. And I'm like, you have all these fractures and no one even wanted to look at your bones until you asked for the DEXA. Mind blowing, you know?
We're failing women. We
They're failing women all day long. That's why I say 90% women, 1% men in my practice. I'm like, I don't care about
So,
men. I don't care. And I have a husband and a child and a boy, but I'm like, I don't care.
Uh,
uh,
anything else?
I have a statement.
Oh,
Hello?
yes,
Yes.
Can you hear me?
yes.
Hi, this is Sylvia Kutsadadis. I've been with members for osteo for 12 weeks now. And I went to my primary doctor and I showed her the pamphlet and she was very interested in it. She kept it. She didn't know anything about it. So I was happy about that I gave that to her. And I was just wondering if there was any discounts for the people that are already involved with the membership.
No, we are not offering any additional. Sorry, but
That's okay.
yeah, but that I mean I understand why you were asking, and I also want to say thank you very much for sharing this with your doctor. And I will say that that is one of the areas that I'm going to be optimizing is going out and having conversations with doctors and helping them to understand. And some of them are very open to this. And one of the things,
Mhm.
I do lunch and learns, and I've done lunch and learns with doctors, and I've said to them, okay, I understand that you believe the medication is the right answer for your patient, but what does that do to improve their muscle strength and their balance? Is that helping?
Nothing.
Nothing. And so even if a person makes a choice to go on medication, or the doctor is adamant and they want to follow their doctor's recommendation, this is a great adjunct, and anything also that Dr. Yanetzi's doing, because again, the more you're optimizing, the faster you're going to see improvement and the faster you're going to be able to strengthen your bone. So,
Right. Right. I was on the pill for 2 years, and about 6 years ago, and then I got off of it because cancerous. That's what I felt. So I got off of it, but then my bones, of course, were deteriorating. So then I found this. So I'm really happy. I tell all my friends and all my family about this, and they're excited. I tell my clients about this. I give them pamphlets. So it's just a great way to help my bones without, like you said about the gym, it really doesn't help, but I do go to the gym 3 times a week, and I ride my bicycle. And I used to have hip problems. Now I don't, because bicycling, when you're pedaling with this, every week I go and I put the hip, I don't know what it's called, but I put it on myself, and it helps me quite a bit. Now I have no pain in my hip when I bike.
So you're right. You're using the healing. Can you tell me which location that you're a member at?
Sure. I was in Avatar for the first 4 weeks, but it's pretty far from my office. So now I go to 17th Street Causeway, and they have that hip.
Yes, and
that
remind me your name.
Oh, sure. My name is Sylvia Koutsadonis.
Great. Thank you.
So I'm really excited, and I can't wait till a year passes, and I'm already increasing my spine. So my primary doctor said that my spine is doing much better. So I'm happy.
Love it. Thank you so much, Sylvia. Thanks for sharing your experience.
Okay, I'm going to go now. I have to go, but thank you so much for everything. It was really informative, and I'll get back to the seminar.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Okay, let me just see. Is there anybody else any other question? Now I think I can see the chat. Hold on. No, I can't. Oh, there I go. No, nothing in the chat. Any last questions? Nope. All right.
There's someone that just said, I have a question. If I have osteopenia close to osteoporosis. So what's the question, Esther?
How often is DEXA scan recommended?
Well, so to be honest, in my office, I'm a big proponent of once a year. I have so far now one patient that she's following more her muscle mass than bone because she thankfully doesn't have any issues with bones, very proactive. But if you do have low bone density, I say at least once a year. I know conventional medicine says every 2 years and 65, unless you have problems, which is horrible. So yeah, yearly. Minimum.
Well, and just to give a little explanation of why the medical or why that recommendation is every 2 years is there's some issues with the DEXA scan and where you're getting it scanned and what machine you're using. And so the reason they want you to wait for 2 years is just to make sure that any changes that you see are real changes and not just, maybe because it was a different technician that positioned you or something along those lines. And then I will also say that unless you're making any changes and any of the things that we were talking about today, I would expect that your bone density would continue to decline because your bones start to decline at 35. and they decline every year unless you're changing something about what makes strong bones. And bones drop off, like Dr. Yanetsi said, through menopause and perimenopause. So you have a big drop off in bone density then. So I tell people, if you're not making any meaningful changes to what impacts bone health, you can expect your bone density to just continue to decline.
Correct.
Any other questions? We've got 2 minutes.
Mhm.
Well, thank you. Oh, real quick, August 28th is the next one. And our plan is to be talking with the people from DexaFit, and we'll be learning everything about DEXA and how to measure your bone density and also muscle body composition, which is so important as we age. So hope to see you there. Spread the word and feel free to share this link. And I'm going to send out a copy of the presentation. So feel free to share it. Oh,
Amazing.
great. Thanks,
Yep,
Linda.
Linda is signing up already. All
See you
right.
next
Thank you,
time.
everybody.